Dan Illman, Matt Birney are creeping closer to the Kentucky Derby with race number 10 at Churchill Downs on the undercard. It's the Grade 3 Pat Day Mile. It's a one-turn mile for 3-year-olds. It is a big field. And let's take a look at the horses getting set to go that 8 furlongs. There is going to be a deserving heavy favorite in this race, Matt, and it's the number 10 Instagram, who was just awesome as a 2-year-old. Won his first 2 starts by a combined 20 1/4 lengths, then disappeared for no reason. They just wanted to give the horse a rest. Came back in the Gotham, was a tough spot in a one-turn mile. He was up on a very fast pace. I thought he acquitted himself quite well. Last time out in the Santa Anita Derby, only beaten 2 lengths by Roadster and Game Winner, 2 of the prime contenders in the Kentucky Derby. Gets the turn back and distance he needs. And he's just way the horse to beat.
There's really nothing for me to knock about this horse or even try to suggest that there's reason to play against him. The only reason that I'm not picking him, and I'm picking him 3rd in here, so maybe it sounds a little bit silly, but simply because of the price. I think he's probably going to be even shorter than 6 to 5, which sounds even crazier when it's a full field of 14, but boy, there's nothing to knock. I thought he ran really well in the Santa Anita Derby at a distance too far. Thought he ran a giant race in the Gotham, given the fact that was his first start since August of last year. He's done nothing wrong to me in 4 lifetime starts. I think he deserves to be the favorite in here.
I like what Todd Pletcher is doing with the number 14 Last Judgment, who won a 2-turn optional claimer last time out at Oaklawn Park. And off of that race, you could have made an argument that maybe, just maybe, they could have run him in one of the major Derby preps to try to sneak into the Derby. But that buyer speed figure came back a little low, and I think Todd realized he's not ready for that level of competition just yet. So he's going to turn him back in distance. I think he's comfortable with that. Now he just has to work out a trip from post 14.
Well, and this is also going to be potentially the springboard one way or the other. Like you say, maybe he needed one more race to prove that he belonged in graded stakes company. This is the option. This is the opportunity. If he runs well here, this could be the springboard to bigger and better things. If he takes a step backward, okay, he's at least shown you gave him a chance at this level. The outside draw, no bargain at all. I mean, breaking from 14, going a one-turn mile, you're going to be hung wide more likely than not at some point. But the good news is you got a really long run into that far turn. So perhaps there's a situation where Velasquez can get in there. Maybe he sits mid-pack, I would say. I don't think he's going to be up there forward on the front end. I think he can be maybe midway, slot over, save some ground, and take a shot. Whether he's good enough or not, we'll find out.
Let's throw up that Timeform U.S. pace projector. In a big field, we expect a fast pace, and there's the red bar. The 4 Mr. Moneybags should make the lead. He's stretching out from 6 furlongs. He has shown 6 furlong, 5 furlong speed against Texas-bred competition at Sam Houston. The main concern is twofold. One, the one time they tried him going around 2 turns, 7.5 furlongs, the longest distance he's raced in his career, he got beat. And 2, this barn seems to do a lot better with sprinters. I was very surprised to see 0 for 33 in my PPs in routes.
You know, the interesting thing here for me with a horse like this, though, I respect the connections for taking a chance here. This is a horse that, you know what, from a numbers standpoint, it makes sense. He's paired up by our tops of 88. But if we're being honest, this is a giant hike in class. He's going to be facing the best horses he's ever run against. To me, though, if he's not on the lead, something clearly has gone wrong, because to me, the best option for him to win this race, or best opportunity, is to just drop the hammer out of the gate and go. And you know what? If it doesn't work, at least you go out, you fall on your sword. It's one of those situations where I'd rather you lose going out doing what you do than have something crazy happen where you try to rate him off of horses and he just doesn't pick his feet up. Go to the front and see if you can last.
And if he's not good enough, Instagram has a nice target, the number 10 sitting there in 2nd position. Market King gets a little bit of class relief, and he's up close to the pace on our pace projector. Good enough to finish 3rd in the faster division of the Rebel behind Omaha Beach and Game Winner, although no threat to those 2 horses. Last time out in the Bluegrass, he just didn't fire, and I wonder if maybe this horse needs a little bit more class relief, but I do like him turning back slightly in distance.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a combination of things. Maybe that field was too tough for him in the most recent start. But, you know, if you look at it and say he was only 8 lengths behind Omaha Beach, who's going to be the favorite in the Derby, then you say, okay, well, he stacks up relatively well. I didn't like the added ground for him in the Bluegrass. Getting back to a one-turn mile, I think helps him. I'd be considering him underneath, but admittedly, it would be as sort of a major backup, a major sort of saver.
I like the 8 Maniwa cutting back in distance. They tried him going 2 turns in the Lecomte. I think that's the best he can do around 2 turns right now, finishing a well-beaten 3rd behind War of Will, and they went on with him in the Risen Star. And again, those horses are better than he is, and that distance is too far for him. So I do like him cutting back, and he does have a 91 buyer speed figure around 1 turn, albeit at 6 furlongs, 3 back.
Yeah, my big concern for him thus far, his 2 wins have both come in gate to wire fashion, and there's no way, shape, or form that I can imagine him on the front end in a race like this. I think he could work at a very nice trip, but he needs to prove that he can actually pass horses.
Formulator fact for the number 9, Captain Von Trapp, going out for Steve Asmussen. Past 5 years, 3-year-old dirt routers in graded stakes off a 45 to 60-day layoff, 6 for 11, 10 of 11 on the board, 259 ROI. Now, I'm a big fan of Captain Von Trapp. I love the way he won that non-winners of 2 Life on March the 2nd. It wasn't a very fast race, and thus I was stunned when Asmussen ran him in the Rebel. I was even more surprised when Captain Von Trapp made this big, wide, looping move on the turn, and for a brief second looked like he was going to get into the race before they ran away from him late. He probably fits better at this distance, probably fits better at this class level. You do have the Asmussen formulator fact. He's 15 to 1. He's not out of this.
No, not at all. And like you say, I do like when those horses at distances that are slightly longer and configurations that are different, predominantly the 2-turn situation, when you put in that big move rounding the far turn and you just can't carry it on, to me that plays a little bit better at a shorter distance and a 1-turn configuration. He's a big price. I think he's got a chance.
Matt, what the heck's going on with Dreammaker? 3 starts back, he won by the length of the stretch. He beat a couple of next out winners. It looked like this horse was on his way. Tampa Bay Derby, fine. He seemed very uncomfortable down inside. He was banged around. Give him that race. In the Bluegrass, he was terrible. What's the deal?
Your guess is as good as mine here with this horse. 3 starts back, I thought he looked like a legitimate sort of Derby prospect. And he just came back, and the Tampa Bay Derby, like you say what you will, maybe he wasn't in a great position. I still thought he should have done some running. And then in the Bluegrass, that was just an unmitigated disaster. So now you're looking at a horse that he either runs a tremendous race or he is absolutely nowhere. He should be 15 to 1 in here. I'm not using him anywhere, but it wouldn't stun me at all if all of a sudden he just finally woke up, he got out of the stall on the right side and said, okay, here's the day, we're going to run. I have no idea, honestly, to what to expect.
Another horse cutting back in distance, dropping a little bits. Mr. Money, the number 7, 5th in the Louisiana Derby. Sueno, the 3rd place finisher, came back to flatter that race. Ran 3rd with a 93 buyer in the Lexington. Brett Calhoun has not been shy to try this horse in tough spots.
No, he ran him in the Breeders' Cup last year as a 2-year-old, and he did very much the same sort of running in the Juvenile that he did in the Risen Star. I'm drawing a line through the Louisiana Derby. I never thought 1 mile and 1/8 would work for him, but in both the Risen Star and the Juvenile, he put in these big bids rounding the far turn, and he flattened out down the lane. To me, he's a horse that's needed shorter. I think this is going to be an interesting spot for him. I picked him second. Toyd was picking him on top. I'll definitely be using him in multis, though.
Before we get to our top picks, we'll talk about a few long shots. The 6 Tobacco Road won the Ellis Park Juvenile last year. Thought he got a really nice trip and setup that day. His most recent start on the dirt, he finished 2nd in the Black Gold. It was an off-the-turf race full of just weak turf horses. I'm just not sure he classes up to these.
No, and I'm also still not really totally convinced that dirt is what he wants as opposed to grass. I know he didn't really run that well in the most recent run, but that run 3 starts back makes me think that perhaps grass is where he's going to end up being his best.
I wanted to make a case for the 11 Frolic Moore. Dallas Stewart has a history of putting over big-priced horses on Derby Day, and he's earned competitive figs 1 and 3 back, but in watching the last race at Keeneland, this didn't break very well, saved ground, and just was even down towards the inside. I expected a little more acceleration.
Yeah, he just was kind of even throughout, but like you say, he's a horse that you could see moving forward, second off the bench. You also wonder, too, slight turn back in distance. That's always a very, very strong angle. And look, Stewart has shown up with big, big prices on big days in the past.
Everfast was 128 to 1 in the Grade 2 Holy Bull and ran a shocking second, taking advantage of a good pace up front. Now, in the Fountain of Youth, I think that was kind of the race where he was exposed a little bit at 63 to 1. The Florida Derby, I won't hold against him because he's a closer and there was just no speed, and you're not going to catch maximum security when that horse gets away to an easy early lead. But Dale Romans keeps the faith.
Yeah, they keep going on with him. I find it a little bit intriguing that he has only gone 1 turn in his career debut. Otherwise, they have kept him out at 2 turns. To me, with the exception of the Holy Bull, he doesn't have a race remotely close to fast enough.
I feel the same way about Hog Creek Hustle as I do about his Fairgrounds contemporary Manny Wah. He was second in the Lecomte at a distance that I think is just a little bit too far for him. He was fine in the Risen Star, distance a little too far for him, and they kept on going in the Louisiana Derby, and that was just way too far for him. He's getting a little bit of a cutback here. Listen, he is a sneaky little horse. If you give him some pace and the right trip, maybe he can sneak into your supers.
Yeah, that's the big piece for me. I like the turn back, I like the one-turn configuration, and I like the prospect of him getting some pace to run at. He's going to be coming from the back. He's one I agree with. If you're playing any of those sort of gimmicky exotics, I'd use him underneath.
Listen, we are probably going to use Instagram heavily in any kind of multiple race wager. He's the horse to beat, but here are some other price horses that you might want to consider as well with our top selections. Matt, you're going to go with the 5 Dumpf. You've been a big fan of this horse. They tried Turf last time out. That's probably not going to be his game. He's been working very, very well. The clockers have liked what they've seen, and his Tampa Bay Derby really wasn't bad considering Tacitus came back to win the Wood, Win came back to run a really good second in the Bluegrass. He fits at this level, and maybe just the turn back is what he needs.
Yeah, so that's really the key for me. Where going all the way back to the Springboard Mile at the end of his 2-year-old campaign, I thought he was in really nice position turning for home, and he just sort of flattened out. Now, it makes me wonder, you go through and you look, and I understand that Spendthrift Juvenile is a stakes name in name only. It's not really a stakes race. But that one-turn sort of configuration, that was really when I thought he took his game to the next level. Tried him in the Jockey Club, didn't work out. Tried him in the Springboard, he flattened out. The 3 runs since, I'm not holding any of them against him. And you brought it up, that Tampa Bay Derby. I didn't think that was a terrible effort from him. I think getting back to the one-turn configuration is going to be what he wants when it's all said and done. I'm very intrigued with him in a spot like this. Look, if he doesn't run well here, I'll probably give up the faith. But I think this is what he's wanted all along. I've been waiting for it. Here it is. I can't go away from him.
Give me numbers.
5, 7, 10, 14.
Durkin's Call already has 3 wins around a one-turn mile, so we know that's not going to be a problem for him. The last race, the Gander for New York Breds, was his first start off of a private purchase, and while he did not beat a very good field, and he only beat 3 of them to boot, he looked very good doing it. He just sat at the back of the pack, attacked on the turn, and then just drew off to win as much the best. If you believe that buyer, and it's a little bit of a leap of faith, that in his 9th lifetime start he was able to improve so much. Maybe it was his first time with Bill Mott that did it. But if you believe that buyer, it puts him in the mix here. I think Durkin's Call can work out some sort of a mid-pack trip for Junior Alvarado. He's 15-1 on the morning line. But for me in multis, I'm going 1 and 10. Those are going to be my keys. And I'll use the 4 and 11 underneath. Grade 3 Pat Day Mile, race number 10 on Kentucky Derby Saturday at Churchill Downs. It has an approximate post of 4:28 Eastern. Best of luck.